Good morning, traders. Gates W. Adams here, and we are back. Happy Monday. I hope you guys had an awesome weekend. And we are back today. We have a special, exciting guest today. Many of you already know him as one of the hosts of live trading here on Benzinga.com. And he is actually always in the background and sometimes chiming in. It is our own producer and massive support to the show, Zunaid, who is a phenomenal trader, and you get to see a lot of his stuff on his show. Now we get to bring some of that to the Trader Bacon Show today.
Welcome to the Trader Bacon Show, where we showcase everyday traders that are getting funded, paid, and bringing home the bacon. Are you ready? Because the Trader Bacon Show starts right now. How's it going?
It's awesome, man. I forgot to mention the voice of the intro to the Trader Bacon Show as well.
When I played it, I was like, it's kind of weird, but I guess we can. It's cool. It's cool weird.
Yeah, man. It's great having you on the show. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, it's been fun watching you host with other traders. And of course, I've dabbled in a little bit of futures trading here and there. So it should be a good conversation.
Well, let's kind of see where it goes, man. So you said the dabbling in futures. What's your primary trading structure? What do you trade normally?
Yeah, so normally I'll go ahead and trade stocks and options, right? That's pretty much what I'll trade. So I'll kind of keep an eye on, hey, what companies have just reported, what companies just had news come out, where the support and resistance. And I can provide a couple of examples of when I wake up, it's like, oh, snap, I missed this trade, but my levels were right. So, I feel a little ego boost there. But that's pretty much what I trade. It's stocks and options usually.
Awesome. So what brought you over to dabbling on the future side?
Definitely the tax benefits to it, right? That's absolutely beneficial as well. And so many prop firms, obviously Apex being one of them as well, with the sales and everything they give you an opportunity to kind of take the emotions out of it a little bit more, right? Which is a good thing and a bad thing because like you and I discussed backstage, if your emotions aren't in it, you may not take it seriously. You might just get into a trade because it's like, oh, whatever, like it's not my money, quote unquote, even though you're paying for the funds and whatnot. But for me, it was like the tax purposes of it. In options, obviously, with data matters so much. If you play weeklies and short-term contracts, that kind of loses value so quick, even though there was no move. So that was kind of beneficial for me as well. And of course, you also have me, who my schedule is weird. So if I want to trade at 2:00 in the morning, 3:00 in the morning, I can keep an eye on oil and other markets around the world and see when they go ahead and trade and kind of adjust my schedule accordingly to that as well. So I don't need to just be 9 to 4 or, 9 to 11 in trading or whatever. I can be a little more flexible on that side of things. And lastly, for me, it was unfortunately in the past when, wars have broken down and things like that, futures are moving, right? Because that news comes out middle of the night, different things like that. So it's like, oh man, I'd like to trade this. I'd like to do XYZ, but you can't. You got to wait till 9:30 in the morning to grab some options. So those are all the variety of reasons for me where I wanted to play with futures, mainly just availability to trade them how I'd like, when I would like.
Well, and ultimately, I think every market, every instrument has its own value in different ways, and some of the dynamics carry over from one to another, and some of them don't. So ultimately, it's a new opportunity, and sometimes may require a little bit of a shift in learning. But at the end of the day, if you're in that mindset, it's just different challenges and different possibilities there. So
yeah.
So you were talking about kind of your setup now. You mentioned the fact that you trade, obviously, during the traditional trading day, if you're in equities and options, futures gives you the opportunity. When you move into a trading session, when you start getting focused in on your charts, what's your process for getting into that space? For me, I know it's a big headspace thing, but I think everybody's got a different set of routines that they do. What does it look like for you going into that place?
In a perfect world, I'd like to wake up at like say 7:30, go to the gym. And I'm a little too tired to try to lift the weights at that point. So I'll just shoot around basketball, things like that. I discussed like pickleball behind the scenes. And for me, I find that I hate cardio, but I can trick my body into doing some type of cardio by shooting the basketball around, which is enjoyment. Playing pickleball, which is amazing there as well. So, I'll kind of shoot some hoops for about 30 minutes or so, maybe get about 4,000 steps in there. I have an Aura ring, so it kind of tells me where I'm at in terms of steps, heartbeats, things like that. And then I will come home, go ahead and shower. I don't eat breakfast, so I'll go ahead and shower and just kind of get ready for the day. And then I'll just keep an eye on Benzinga and say, okay, cool, these are the stocks that are moving. Now let me figure out why they're moving. If it's just like a pump and dump type, if there's actual news, catalyst. Of course, we're in earnings seasons at the moment, so I'll just go ahead and kind of play those things. So for example, here I'll go ahead and share my charts. So, like for example, I know Disney had reported earnings. So it's going to report earnings. So, kind of playing the run up, if you will. It's like, hey, let me go ahead and see where the levels are. So, if I'm
Right.
looking at Disney, which is pretty much on my main list, and I know that
Mhm.
we're a futures trading show, but I'll share the same exact thing that I do on futures here in a second. I have it there, but I'll come over here. And by the way, I haven't touched this. This I went ahead and charted last week. But just an
Okay.
example, hey, here's where support is, and here's where resistance ended up being as well. You can see today, if I were trading this one, I didn't trade it. It was a focus on other things. I would have been able to kind of trade this one because it did hit resistance and came right back. So just kind of
Right.
charting levels and seeing what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Is pretty much what I like to go ahead and do. And then I'll also keep an eye on like what moved yesterday to see if we get a continuation, whether it's to the upside or downside. Or if it's like, hey, man, I was looking at the Tesla level of 250. It never got tested. Let me see if it tested today. So because some people out there will be like, hey, if you want to go ahead and buy a stock that's bleeding, give it 3 days. Let it go ahead and bleed. Let it go ahead and sell for 3 days. I don't know the stats behind it. I haven't back tested it. But for me, I'll look for those continuation plays as well.
Sure. Now you mentioned looking at yesterday's, and of course today is Monday. Now, do you look at that differently on a Monday over the weekend than you would say on a Thursday versus Wednesday?
That's a great question. Yes, in the sense of there's more news that could have come out, but
Mhm.
also no, in the sense of hey, if people wanted to continue selling it, they would. But I do believe that psychologically speaking, folks have more time to digest the news and maybe be comfortable with it as well.
Mhm.
But for example, Tesla, I believe they had their CFO. I could be wrong. I apologize if I am, but I believe someone important enough did go ahead and resign. So that obviously is a different story than whatever may have happened on a Friday. And you can see the
Mhm.
nice little downfall. And again, I haven't even looked at Tesla here, but you can see that level working out perfectly and coming out to the downside as well. So yes, I do believe that it's kind of the same, but there's obviously more stories coming out during the weekend for us to digest.
Sure. Now you talked about support and resistance, and I'm not sure which bar that is. Is that a resistance bar? Or is that a support bar?
This would be a resistance bar here for me. And the reason I had done this, it was on Friday, is just kind of keeping an eye on, hey, in the aftermarket, in the after hours, you can see that I kind of had a little bit of trouble going through it. And I'm a big fan of
Mhm.
previous closes as well. So if I can find a level where I have previous resistance and or support, where I have previous close, which is a red dotted line here, and also
Okay.
VWAP as well. That to me are three levels of support and or resistance, depending on which way we're going. And that's when I'll go ahead and trade it. So for me, this would have been a trade right here.
Got it.
Taking Tesla. And then I love hold numbers here as well. So the chat, if they're watching from live trading as well, they know I love my whole numbers as well. So I think here's Tesla at 250. It didn't quite test it. It was what is that? 40 cents away. Matter of fact,
Right.
SPY. Let's see if it there you go. SPY 450 here on SPY as well, right? So again, it doesn't always work, right? Here's a quick breakdown, came right back up. I did get chopped up on this one on Friday. But it does help me out in terms of my trading. If I can find support resistance around those key levels, whole numbers, it does help me in my trading for sure.
Now, what is a critical factor for you when you're looking at potentially moving into a trade as far as seeing a bounce versus a breakout?
For me, I am better at playing breakouts, but that's because I'm uncomfortable playing breakdowns because it's like, oh man, my stop is right here. I'm so close to getting stopped out. I'm so close to getting stopped out. Like, so for example, let's see if we can just quickly find. Yeah, I'll pull up some futures and oh, what do you know? Look at that. So nice little rejection from there. So by the way, for me, if this is the micro e mini S&P 500 index futures, if this did go ahead and come down to around this 4,500 level, I would go ahead and buy it. And then I would look
Mhm.
left and say, hey, when is the last time that we bounced around this level, if at all? And of course, it's right here. So the way that I would go ahead and enter this trade is I would try to purchase some here at 4,500. Let me go ahead and make sure I have it properly. And my stop loss would be like maybe give it about a point below. And then I would go ahead and say, okay, cool. If I'm going to go ahead and grab, let's say it's 3 contracts, just hypothetically speaking, my ratio would be kind of like 1-to-1, right? So just kind of having a bounce here, right around there, give or take. It's like, cool. I'm going to go ahead and have my 1-to-1. Then I'll have my 2-to-1s like right around here. And then I'll go ahead and have my 3-to-1 as well. So that's how I kind of go ahead and have my trades. That way I can go ahead and snag it, make profits on the 1-to-1. Cool. If it's working, let's get a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, things like that. So this is what I would try to go ahead and play. What's up?
I'm sorry. Is that your typical risk reward management? 1, 2, and 3?
1, 2, and 3, yes. And my stop losses are always just the same. So there's no 1, 2, and 3 in terms of stop losses for me. Stop loss is just a stop loss. And then 1, 2, and 3 targets as well. But to answer your question, though, I'm trying to quote unquote work on my craft on playing bounces. Because, sometimes you get wicked out and then you kind of get frustrated if you do get wicked out, it goes against you and things like that. But I do prefer to play breakouts. I do prefer to kind of play, hey, cool, it's broken out. Now let me go ahead and get it on the retest, and then I can go ahead and play it that way. Matter of fact, I think I did play something on Cat. I can't remember where it was. But sometimes it doesn't work out. I'm happy to show my losses from a couple of days ago where I had resistance here at the 288.74. Then it broke out. I like to trade on the 15-minute. And I never really tested it until it did. I got in and I got stopped out. So like it didn't work out and then it kind of got chopped around. So again, doesn't always work. But to answer your question, I prefer to play breakouts. But if I were to play bounces from supports, it would be kind of like this. And something that I always try to do is say if I'm looking to buy at 4,500, right? What I'll do is I'll try to buy one contract at say a point above. So around 4,501. Then another contract at 4,500, then another contract at like 44.99. That way I can go ahead and get my 3 contracts with the average price that I want. And the reason I do that is because so often, sometimes a stock will bounce a point or so higher. Like for example, we showed it on SPY, right? I would have definitely wanted to short this, but it never really came to test the 450 level. So it's like, hey, let me go ahead and grab some around 75, grab some at 450, grab some at 450.25. And then I'm out if it breaks 450.50 to the upside. So that way I have my averages. I'm in a position. I get something if the move does happen in my favor.
So you might not get all 3 contracts, but you'll get one.
Exactly. I'll get one. I'll get a piece of the pie. Because look, I'm not going to get the whole move. I don't know anyone in the world that does, even the folks who have billions of dollars. So let me just get a little bit of that pie, period.
Right.
And we've got a couple of questions here. I know I'll just put them up here if you don't mind me answering them. Do I trade pre and post market? I personally don't, just because there's so much news that comes out sometimes, whether if it's CPI numbers, this, that, and the other. I typically don't. But I have noticed that, you'll have whole number bounces. Let me see if I remember correctly on this one a while back. You will have whole number bounces in pre-market areas as well sometimes. So I personally don't. I also don't trade after hours. I don't trade that. I don't trade pre-market. I just like to have, the reason is because I like to have my stop losses, and in the, pre-market, you can't really set them. So if I do, very rarely I will, but I'll take much, much smaller size. So if my average size is, let's say 200 shares, depending on that same exact stock, I'll trade maybe 50, maybe 25, just so I can get my itch, get my fix in, if you will.
Right.
But no, after that, I won't. Here's a question you and I may be able to tackle together. Hey, Zunaid, isn't it actually cheaper trading the minis with respect to their micros? So why the micros? So for me, I don't trade futures that often, right? And so for me, it's a matter of each point on the mini side is $50, where on the micro side, I believe it's $12.50. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a lot smaller. So for me, it's more so of, hey, I'm just getting my feet wet, right? I'm just trying to get in the trade, see how it moves. I haven't quote unquote perfected it, mastered it. I don't think I ever will, but I'm just more comfortable with going smaller size so that I can be like, hey, you know what? My move was right. Next time in 3 months, I can go ahead and take higher size. So that's all it is. It's just
right.
Because each point is worth less, and therefore I feel more comfortable in terms of my risk reward. And that's about it.
Right. Yeah. I think there comes a point where if you're trading, X number of micros, it just makes more sense to move into the minis if you can stomach the risk difference. But
Yeah.
ultimately, the commission structure is probably not going to be as critical to most traders as where they're going to be comfortable on a per tick or per point
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah. And then if you're looking to get into futures and I'm stating the obvious here, but obviously Apex Trader is one of the ones that is actually the only trading prop firm account that I have when it comes to futures. And it just helps with, especially with the sales and things that we do, it helps with kind of making sure that, hey, let me go ahead and get my feet wet and let me have some skin in the game, because you do go end up paying 40, $50 or so to get an account. So if you are looking to get into futures, but you're not sure exactly how they work, a lot of people will say, hey, go ahead and get paper trade, which if you're just brand new day one starting out, I think it's like, all right, cool, you can go ahead and paper trade. But I think eventually, though, you do want to go ahead and move into either grabbing one contract, two contracts of real money, or going to a prop firm like Apex, so that you can go ahead and have some skin in the game, get an idea of support, resistance, all that other good stuff. So you can have some type of emotion coming out when the trade is going against you or in your favor, so that when you are ready for the big money and you do pass your evals, you can be ready for that move as well.
Right, and I've always said that's really kind of the bridge that gaps from sim to full deposit. Yeah, you got to have some skin in the game, of course, to have that emotional reaction, but that's also going to be the least emotional you're going to get, where you have an opportunity to profit out. And for me, that's one of the big perks. And I'm going to take this opportunity, since you brought it up, to just remind everybody here at the end of the show, we're going to be giving away a few evaluations from Apex Trader Funding. So stick around. Maybe we can get that link up there for the form, and make sure you get signed up for an option or an opportunity to win one of those. So,
yeah. Matter of fact, there it is in the chat as well. So let me go ahead and fill that form out. It's pretty simple, standard stuff that we'd like to ask you. And then we will go ahead and give away those accounts, and you can grab whichever one you want for free for that first month. And then it's 50% off thereafter. So definitely some great stuff that we can do. I know you've got another guest lined up for us here on the show as well. So Tyson, you can go ahead and give us a thumbs up whenever you'd like. And then when Tyson's ready, we can bring him on. But, going back to the future side of things for me, though, this is actually a real trade that I am going to take. Once I go in the back, I'll set things up. But I would go ahead and take this bounce of about 4,500, have a stop loss underneath it, and then see if I can get a bit of a move. And then, one thing that I need to work on personally is letting my runners run. Because sometimes, some people, what they'll do is they'll have like an EMA where it's like, hey, as long as it's above this EMA, I will go ahead and continue to let this contract run. I unfortunately am not patient. Maybe it's because of my trading life and, my other ventures that I do. Like, I'm looking for, hey, did it work or did it not work? Am I in? Am I out? So that's something that I'm still trying to work on, is being patient, letting my runners go. Thankfully, I no longer have the issue of not having a stop loss. It's been maybe a year and a half since I've taken a trade that didn't have a stop loss, if not more than I'm at 2-3 years, whatever the case is. But Tyson, if you can hear us, give me a thumbs up. And whenever you're ready. I think I saw a thumbs up, but it was kind of sideways. I don't know. Okay, cool. There we go. But yeah, Gates, if you don't have anything else for me, I can go ahead and bring Tyson up here as well.
No, man, I appreciate it. That was fun.
I absolutely appreciate you. Let me go ahead and bring in Tyson, and I will go ahead. What's up, buddy? You're on air. I'll take myself to the back.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, guys.
That's all right, man. How are we doing today?
I am awake, I guess.
Well, I know you're in Canada, and it's actually a holiday for you guys up there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you just have to take those opportunities. So welcome, man. I appreciate you coming in.
No, I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk a little bit about about Tyson and really kind of what your trading world looks like. Now, first and foremost, trading is not your full-time gig, right?
No. So I am a part-time, well, I guess a side gig trader. I don't do this for a living. I have an actual job. Let me rephrase that. I have a day job that allows me to trade because it's at a desk, and I can take orders and put in positions whenever I see an opportunity. So no, I am more of a side gig trader. This is not a full-time thing for me.
Awesome. Now, how long have you been trading?
About 1-2 years. At least
Players
seriously,
maybe?
at least trying to like actually make a profit. Before it was more like,
Right.
throwing some money in the market, letting it sit. So the distinction between trading versus investing, right?
Right. Now, how long ago did you like get serious about trading and start, really going all in and making some financial commitments?
Yeah, like, let's say 2 years. Yeah, definitely 2 years ago.
Years ago.
Yeah.
How did that go early on?
Well, I guess let's go back to maybe it was a little bit more than 2 years ago, but like the GameStop fervor, right, where everyone learned about what the fucking option was, so to speak, and I threw some money I opened up a brokerage account, I threw some money in, and started playing around with options. It did not go well. Lost quite a bit of money, and then I needed to, and after that, I needed to find a way how to like stabilize and figure out a better method, a better, more sustainable way of trading, and not just the trying to shoot for those 3,000, 4,000% gainers. Like I'm sure a lot of people got caught up in that fervor, and I was one of those people.
Well, I think anybody who's been trading for any period of time has actually seen some of those opportunities. And when you see them a time or two, you start to realize that they're temporary. Yeah, you might pick up some great opportunities along the way, but proceed with caution.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. So what brought you back in? What brought you back into the world of trading after that?
A belief that I could make it work.
Okay.
That clearly, like I can see how it's done, how the risk management works when it does work, and how you do benefit. But I needed to figure out a way. Like I needed to do it in a sustainable way that didn't like cost tens of thousands of dollars by buying really big option contracts, right? So the answer to your question is really, I could see how with proper risk management how it could be done. I just needed to find a way that suited my personal taste and style.
Right.
Yeah. And option contracts were probably not the answer to that.
Of course, and then again, we were talking a little bit earlier about the different dynamics from, options and equities and futures and whatnot. Now you're obviously trading futures now, because I know you're trading with as a funded trader with Apex.
Yes, exactly.
What are you typically trading?
Typically, I'm doing micros with ES and NQ.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we actually had a question earlier about trading NQ, and I actually have an opinion on that. I prefer trading NQ personally, and the reason being is because I have, as Zunaid mentioned on his end, I have a lack of patience. And looking at some of these other markets, ES or RTY, I mean, I like the indexes for indices, depending on how grammatically critical you are. I like that fast movement. I want to get in and out of a trade as quickly as possible. When you start to see some of these other markets and the move is just so painfully slow to get a 5, 10, 15 tick move, that's where I lose my patience. Now, that said, I know that there's a lot of other traders who see it completely opposite. They don't like the speed and the action that you see in something like NQ. And you have less time to to see the setup, to make that decision, or whatever the case may be. So again, I think that's very trader specific. But you're trading NQ and you're trading ES, Tyson. What is your opinion on the difference between the two as a trader?
So my opinion is, well, obviously the NQ is a bit more volatile. I like to use I like to trade the stronger of the two, relatively speaking. Because what you'll find is that, of course, NQ is tied to tech, and ES is the market as a broader whole. I like to, I share that opinion in that NQ is much faster, but I also find that I can quite hit your stops just as quickly because of that, right?
Sure. 100% agree with that, and I don't know. Again, I think for me, it's a matter of, look, my percentages are not necessarily different from one to another. I'm just in and out faster,
right?
And
yeah, that's fair.
That works better for me.
Yeah. So it depends on what's moving, really, right? So like obviously the market is made up of a whole bunch of things happening, and if the tech isn't moving, then it's boring. But if something like oil, like some other sectors moving, then ES seems to be more responsive, right? So I just kind of pick the one that seems to flow with whatever sector is going. I haven't taken a look at the market this morning. I do notice it's down again, but like some days tech is just cratering, right? So why wouldn't you trade tech, right? So
awesome. Awesome. And yeah, we just posted up there. It's last chance to get registered for that free evaluation. Make sure you get that taken care of so that you got a shot there. And we'll announce those here in just a few. Now, Tyson, I want to ask you, since we unfortunately had a little bit more limited time, but there was a conversation that we had that I think bears repeating as we were talking about the show to begin with. You took a hefty hit early on when you were trading your own resources.
Absolutely.
And I asked you a question. I'm going to ask you again. If your entry back into trading involved you depositing like you did the first time, would you have gotten back into trading?
No, I didn't have the capital to do it. Period.
Right. Even if you did, what would psychologically speaking, how do you think that would have affected you?
Devastated me, so to speak, right? So one of the advantages to, I suppose, Apex trader funding is that you're not risking like $20,000-$30,000. You're risking a couple hundred maybe, right? After that particular let's call it loss or introduction to the market, it's perhaps another word for it. I did not have the resources to try that again, period, right? But I had a better understanding and the knowledge to keep going, but not that chunk of change, if that makes sense. So the answer is I would not have returned to the market, or more specifically, would have taken me years to get back to that level of being involvement. But with a funded trading account,
now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, with a funded trade account, I was able to get back in much quicker with much smaller pieces of capital, right? Obviously, with some passing the test, getting funded, then doing withdrawals. But even if everything goes sideways again, I'm not in that same emotional state where I've just completely not only destroyed a nest egg or unable to do the next big thing in my life because I've thrown it all away, right?
For sure. Well, I don't want to take anything away from that, but Bongo, great to see you on the show. I appreciate you, brother. All right. So Tyson, after all said and done, obviously you've had a chance to operate as a funded trader for a while, and obviously doing well. What's your biggest takeaway from moving into this space?
Your biggest enemy is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mental game. I'm sure this gets repeated all the time, but if you don't manage your risk, you're not going to be successful.
Right.
And the limits are, the possibilities are limitless. There's a lot of freedom that can be gained through this. And the other thing, the last thing I'd say is, everyone, you can have your red days, accept them. They're part of the process.
Sure.
We're playing probabilities here. We're not trying to hit home runs,
Perfect.
Right? Yeah.
That's awesome. And Raj, you wanted to know if you started trading futures or what did you start trading on?
When I first started trading, it was the option contracts, and they just didn't go very well. But when I started trading futures, that was about a year or two ago. So I saw the big the bear market, essentially 2022, and the rally before then, and now whatever this is right now, until we define it later, of course. So that, yeah, about 2 years ago, I'd say I started trading futures seriously. I found that micros helped me manage risk at a psychological level, like, being down 5 points is only $25 versus with a mini contract, you're down $250.
Right.
And then eventually I've kind of found a strategy that works for me. And then my biggest struggle personally has been scaling that up. Some days it works great, some days it doesn't. Even though, let's say you come up with a strategy that you're winning, 60% of your risk reward is 1 to 4. You still are going to lose trades. And in those, when you lose those trades, it's still, it just, for whatever reason, it happens to be whenever I decide to go up a level, I lose those trades. But if I were to stick with it, I would probably make a lot more money. But right now, for me, just trading a few micros, shooting for a payout every couple months, that's kind of what works for me. And like Gates said, to start, it's more of a side gig for me. This is like extra cash. Perhaps if I get confident enough within a high enough scale thing, it'll become a full-time gig. And that's like a longer term goal. But right now, I'm really comfortable where I'm at with just trading a few micros.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One thing I've figured out is that trading is a lifelong journey. If you want to stick with it, there's never a moment where you stop learning, stop growing, and stop developing as a trader. So there's just always that next level, that next opportunity, and that next step. So anyway, man, I appreciate you taking some time with us this morning. Great to catch up here a little bit. And I wish you the continued success. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep growing and keep making it happen, man. And keep it green. Keep it like a shirt, not your chair.
Exactly.
Here, man.
Thank you for the opportunity, Gates. Sorry I was a little late.
Of course.
I see the market is doing its sell thing again, so
right.
maybe I'll catch a few points here. But
awesome. Looks like we have some winners here: Karan, Jonathan, and Heidi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that first one right, but congratulations. And we'll get with you with via email with all of the details so that you can get those free evaluations set up. And we will be back next week with the Trader Bacon Show. Thanks, all.
Welcome to the Trader Bacon Show, where we showcase everyday traders that are getting